AI adoption in the enterprise is at a crossroads. Many companies have rolled out AI tools like Copilot and ChatGPT, but despite what I believe to be tremendous potential, few have managed to drive real adoption beyond a handful of early users. At the same time, AI isn't just about efficiency. It's also a thought partner for executives and decision makers, augmenting leadership in unexpected ways. To unpack this, I'm joined by Greg Shove, a six-time founder and CEO who's worked with companies like Apple, AOL, and multiple successful startups. As a CEO section, he helps enterprises train their workforce in AI and build AI-powered workflows. They will explore what it really takes to get AI embedded in company culture and leadership. Greg, welcome to Just Curious.
Thank you, Stuart. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. You've been involved in technology for many years. You've seen some real and some potential technology platform shifts, the internet, cloud, mobile, three, and now AI. With the benefit of that perspective, how does AI compare?
Well, I'll answer the question in part by telling a story. When I played with ChatGPT Plus, which was February the 1st, 2023, so basically 2 years ago, that day I decided to pivot section. And we had been building section for the 3 or 4 previous years. And pretty much within a few hours, I decided that section would no longer be an online management school to help leaders learn how to lead and set business strategy, and that we'd become an AI school. And I pretty much made the decision on the spot. That's how significant I think this technology is. Its superpowers are its Achilles heel. AI is so capable of so many things, and that's why it is going to be so disruptive. At the same time, it's not great at any one thing yet. The exception might be software. That's probably the first use case where it's certainly good in getting great, and where software engineers are getting really significant productivity sort of improvements. And if, and I believe it will, those improvements apply to all other knowledge worker functions, then AI clearly will be the most significant technology that we've used and released in the last, 5 decades. I think it's an open question just for a little while longer, Stuart, meaning the Achilles heel of AI is it still does hallucinate. It still does make mistakes, right? It doesn't answer every question perfectly and reliably. And that's hard for knowledge workers to deal with. And I do think that's one of the reasons AI adoption's not been what we expect it to be yet. So I'm assuming the AI companies can solve some of the erratic behavior of AI. And when they do, I think it is transformative. I think we'll look back on this period in 10 or 20 years and realize this was the moment where the world did change, and that we had work and life before AI, and we have work and life now after AI. And I think that is kind of this moment.
Yeah. And when you look back at prior emerging technologies, let's take the internet. Do you see similarities in terms of potential and skepticism and adoption?
Yeah, sure. All the above.
Low
Yeah, all
initially.
the above. Right? We're seeing. Well, let's think about these previous waves and think about the companies that were created. Right? Amazon, a company that I knew early. In fact, I met Jeff Bezos within the first year of him founding Amazon. In fact, I tried to buy his company when I worked at AOL, and at the time it was selling books. And we thought, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Selling books, but what else could you really sell online, right? And now, of course, you fast forward 25, 30 years, and Amazon kind of owns our consumption. Meta owns our attention, primarily. TikTok as well, obviously. When you think about the two companies that own our attention, it would be Meta and TikTok. If you think about Google kind of owning our intention,
Yeah, yeah.
right? What we intend to do, what we're about to do, right? These are all massively valuable companies. They all took 20 years. They all use similar playbooks, which was sort of basically grow as fast as they could, get us hooked, on their products or services, and then begin to monetize them over time. All those companies used that basic playbook, as have others like Uber, for example, in terms of ride sharing. And so I think AI is using some of the same playbooks, right? Which is lower the price. I mean, we're very lucky as consumers. We don't pay the real cost of AI, right? Investors are currently funding AI to such an extent that it's near free to consumers. And these companies intend to get us addicted. And then, of course, they'll monetize us later. They'll find the business models that work in terms of extracting, revenue and value from us. I think it's more significant though, Stuart, because all the companies I mentioned are an important aspect of our lives, right? Our intention, our attention, our consumption. This is about our thinking.
Mhm.
This is a race to build, I think, the most valuable company in the world. And it's one to which we're going to cognitively offload our thinking to. Not all of our thinking, but we're going to offload a lot of work and thinking to one or two or three of these companies, the winners in AI. I mean, I think that has profound implications, not just for work or for thinking, but just how we are as humans. How will it change how we think when we can cognitively offload a lot of work to a machine? I just think these are unanswered, obviously, questions. They're going to come with a lot of unintended consequences. Some will be good, some will not be good, and will clearly change how we work and how we get medical advice and how we educate and how we parent our kids. All aspects of our lives will be changed by, I think. That wasn't the case with these other companies or tools.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing maybe that is similar to prior waves is how it changes is unclear. That we may have some suppositions about certain types of work that will be maybe better done more accurately, more efficiently by AI. But those feel like, I don't know, like nearer term returns from this wave versus the real returns, which are completely new ways of engaging with it, how AI engages with other technologies, and how those technologies compound on themselves, I think is, for me, super exciting. Obviously, it can be scary, since we have not ever had a technology replace our like cognitive skills or augment our cognitive skills. We've replaced our like physical skills with the cotton gin or the steam engine or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I think Stuart, the pundits that I like to read are the ones that are honest around saying it's hard to predict. Like that's why I get frustrated with the pundits that with such near certainty predict what AI is going to do in terms of work and us and the potential consequences. We don't know. I hear pundits who say we're all going to be out of work and we're all going to be, collecting our UBI, universal basic income checks because that's what AI is going to do to us. And others say, no, we're just going to be working just as hard
Yeah.
and just more productively, right, with our AIs. And the reality is we don't know. And
Yeah.
I think we should be sort of intellectually honest about that, and frankly, somewhat humble about it. Meaning, we are unleashing these technologies relatively quickly. I mean, really quickly, actually. On ourselves. And let's be prepared for all kinds of different sort of impacts and outcomes. And again, some will be really good, and some will be unattended and not so good. But it's coming fast, right? The guardrails are off, and the flow of capital is currently unchecked, and so the investor appetite is so strong for AI that $300 billion this year alone just from 5 companies in terms of investing in AI infrastructure. Meta's announced potentially a single data center that would cost $200 billion in a single data center. Kind of crazy amounts of money, right? And then the Trump administration, of course, rescinded the Biden administration AI safety regulation. So what I mean by that all is that it's just going to come very, very quickly. And I want all of us kind of ready as best we can.
Yeah. Tell us how you're helping enterprises get ready for this new world at Section.
Yeah, listen, I think that the workforce is starting to split, and it's basically those who are in the AI class and those who are not. And we've kind of verified this by doing a survey last September. We're actually updating it this month in March. We surveyed 5,000 knowledge workers, US, UK, and Canada, and about 9% of them were AI proficient. And by the way, Stuart, we asked them not just questions, we actually asked them to prompt, and then we had AI grade their prompts. So we were able to assess, are they able to have a productive conversation through prompting with an AI? And only 9% were. Everybody else was, varying degrees of capabilities, including skeptics who probably have their head in the sands, and hope this blows over, which I don't think it will. So we think about this as eventually all of us will have to be in the AI class. We'll have to be working with our AIs every day. But in the next few years, there's a clear advantage for those who are in that class, and therefore there's a clear advantage for organizations that can get more of their employees sort of into the AI class. Can they take employees that are clearly anxious today? Most employees, and there was research just this past week from Pew Research showing high levels of anxiety and stress about AI from workers, understandably. So most people are AI novices and AI anxious. And we want to help organizations and individuals, move from that state to being, confident and AI proficient. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Many companies have rolled out AI tools, as I mentioned in my introduction. And we know many folks, you and I both, who use generative AI as an integral part of their day and their workflows. But, to your point just now, widespread adoption and maybe proficiency is a challenge within the enterprise. What's holding them back?
Sure. Well, let's start by setting the context here. First of all, like any new technology, or at least most new technologies, consumers and small business go first. And I think it's particularly true with AI because AI basically provides an edge, a cognitive and productivity edge. And if you think about who needs the edge the most, it's small businesses, it's people doing a side hustle, it's entrepreneurs, right? It's the most ambitious people in the organization. They're looking for an edge. They're looking for a way to get ahead. So it's not surprising, in the broader context that's who has adopted AI first. They also have less risk in terms of using AI. They have a higher risk tolerance for using AI because again, they want the edge. They're not conservative large organizations. They're people that can move faster. And so I think that's what took everybody by surprise with ChatGPT, that they've raced out to 400 million active users with about, I think, 12 to 15 million paid users so quickly. It's mostly been consumers and small business. So enterprise typically lag, and that makes sense. Enterprises are more conservative, more concerned about their data. They're more cautious. It's slower to roll out new technologies in larger organizations. So it's been slower, but still, I think most organizations are making a lot of basic mistakes. And that's why they're underwhelmed by these deployment and adoption numbers. And I think, Stuart, the list includes the following. The first we already talked about. There's a lot of employee anxiety about AI. And that's because most employees are getting their information about AI from the media. And the media's job is to get us to click so they can monetize our attention. And they get us to click by, outrage and fear and emotions like that. And so the primary narrative about AI in the media has been it's coming for us. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to be our overlord, or that kind of narrative. So that's what employees are reading and hearing about as relates to AI. So they're worried about it, understandably, and they know that CFOs are all about driving efficiency. And if you look at corporate profits in the last 4 years, Stuart, they've been phenomenal. We've had this real burst, dramatic increase in the U.S. in corporate profits, and CFOs want to keep, that's been a party, and they want to keep the party going. And so when CFOs think about AI, they think about, frankly, efficiencies, which is Latin for job cuts.
Yeah.
And employees know that, right? So they're not stupid. I think that's one. Second is that some enterprises have rolled out sort of what I would consider compromised or sort of handicapped AI. Maybe a version of AI that doesn't search the web, or a version of Copilot that is constrained in some way. They don't want to pay for the full Copilot license for everybody, so they give everybody kind of base Copilot, which is the Microsoft AI, and not the full featured Copilot. So that sucks for employees. They're not getting the best of AI. The other is data. I think AI is really amazing when you can use your own data and content, obviously, right? When you can work with your AI on your information, your data, your business plan, your marketing plan, your medical diagnosis, whatever it is, it's that much more powerful and useful. If you can't do that, it's kind of like a glorified search engine. And why bother? Especially if it hallucinates, you might as well use Google, right? So companies have been so constrained, most of them, certainly larger ones, with, you can't use that data, and you can't upload that data, and you can't do that. Well, then employees are like, well, what's the value then, right? The value of AI is working with your content, your data in your job, right? Also, there's not a cultural point of view, I think, with most organizations about AI. They have AI rules and regulations. The AI governance committee spent 9 months coming up with a policy, and then they kind of deployed the policy. But the policy is not enough. You need to have a point of view. You need to have a manifesto about AI. You can't just talk about it like the CEO saying we're going to do AI. You've got to spread throughout the organization. What is your point of view? Is it okay to use AI? Is AI cheating or not? It's clearly not cheating, but a lot of people think it is. A lot of people think it's cutting corners to use AI. And by the way, these are values we teach kids in school. And you go through school, and then you go into work with these sort of pretty deeply held beliefs about work. Don't cut corners, don't cheat. Hard work is a virtue, and so on. And AI really challenges a lot of those kind of cultural beliefs about work. And companies aren't doing enough to tell their employees it's okay to use it. And more than okay, I want you to use AI. I mean, from my perspective, at my company, there's only 35 of us at Section. We're a small company, but I want everybody using AI all the time. I mean, with new job candidates, we have like a lot of people, we have assignments that we want candidates to complete as part of the interviewing process. If I had a candidate today say to me, "Oh, I didn't use AI to help me complete the assignment. I wanted to show you how smart I was, so I completed the assignment all on my own, as part of the interview process," I'd be like, "I don't want to hire you."
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I want you to say something else to me. I want you to say, "I worked with AI and I got my V1 with AI, and then I improved upon the V1 using my own kind of experience, brilliance, creative genius, and so on. And now this is what I'm submitting as my assignment." That's the employee I want to hire, right? And employees need to know that when they're working internally in these organizations, that, yeah, it's absolutely okay to work with AI. In fact, it's preferred. And you're going to get a better output faster, So those are probably to me the top reasons why deployments are stalling, and they're going to stay stalled. Oh, but actually, one last thing: training. In our survey of 5,000 knowledge workers, only 24% had been trained on AI, yet the organization had already deployed AI. So if you're
Yeah.
not going to train people how to use AI, then what do you expect? You're going to stall out at 5 to 7%. And I've been predicting that the AI companies will face significant churn of their enterprise clients in the coming year or two. Hopefully, they've signed multi-year agreements. Hopefully, these clients are locked in for a few years, because I would say the deployment and adoption levels today are nowhere near enough to satisfy what the CFO is actually paying for these AIs. And these companies will face real kind of customer churn issues unless they can fix this.
Yeah. And obviously, that's not a great return on whatever they spent on all of those licenses. But at the same time, more importantly, it's not preparing them for a world that is going to be radically different, and a business world that is going to be radically different. If you take those challenges and you kind of turn them around, and I know you had some recommendations, embedded in that response just now, but if someone comes to you and they say, "Greg, we have 8% adoption. We've rolled out Copilot, but it's, hamstrung. We made some recommendations from our center of excellence like 9 months ago, but now they feel completely dated because everything's changed. Can you give me a strategy to become AI like fluent and, get my adoption to, let's say, 50%? What would you recommend? Like, what are the like 2 steps, 5 steps,
Sure.
3 steps, four
Yeah,
steps
yeah.
that take you from 8 to 50?
Yeah, great question. Here's what I'd do. I'd make sure either the whole employee population, or if you're a big organization and you don't want to do it for the whole organization, let's say you have 1,000 employees, pick 100, as your pilot essentially, and restart with them, and restart in the following way. Have an AI manifesto, not just rules and regulations. Upgrade the AI so those employees, whether it be 100 or the whole organization, get a best of class AI. That would be, in my mind, ChatGPT for enterprise. If you're a Microsoft shop, that could be a Copilot, but the full featured Copilot. Third, make sure you've got the enterprise version of those AIs so that employees are free to load almost any company information into their AI when they're doing their job, so that employees are not scared about being fired if they share the wrong information, and more importantly, can get value from the AI by working with their documents and their content. I'd run basic change management programs, lunch and learns, celebrate those who find great use cases with AI, share where it doesn't work as fast as possible, so people don't waste time getting frustrated with AI because AI can't do something well. If someone already figured that out, share that knowledge quickly. Have a single instance on your Microsoft Teams or your Slack, a single channel where you channel or you funnel all your AI conversations, all your tips and tricks and wins and losses. Have a single place where employees can go to and kind of learn from that stuff. Do AI shout outs. It sounds crazy. The first time we did them was kind of goofy, right? You're used to doing shout outs to humans, and I don't think AI are human. Obviously, they're not on the org chart. I'm not suggesting put AI in the org chart, but I am suggesting at all hands meetings or team meetings, do AI shout outs and sort of acknowledge where AI helped, and so other people can learn from that. Okay, I could use AI for that, right? The last thing I do is I'd also do workflow redesigns. I'd pick the top 10 sort of most complex or annoying or sort of repetitive workflows that a team uses, and go in there and see if you can redesign them with AI. So interview people that are working, in those workflows or accomplishing those tasks, and see if there's a way to introduce AI into those workflows. So find 10 and then make a short list of 3, and then really get hands-on and create the playbook to show how that workflow is now different with using an AI, right? So let's assume it's ChatGPT. Get in there with that team. Maybe it's the content marketing team, maybe it's the software engineering team. Doesn't really matter. And find the workflows where you can really get ChatGPT to improve the workflow in a significant way, right? Outsource that work to the AI, or, speed up the human in terms of getting the job done. Probably a combination of both, right? And then get that kind of trained up, get the team trained up on that new workflow that's got AI embedded in it, in that. Do that 2 or 3 times, and people will see, okay, we can redesign these workflows with AI helping out. Use those as your lighthouse case studies kind of internally. All that'll take 6 to 12 months. I see no reason why a team, certainly under 1,000 or less, can't be at 50% adoption of an off-the-shelf LLM like ChatGPT or Copilot or Google Gemini within a year. I think anything less is failure, frankly. And here's the issue, Stuart. It's the motivation. What needs to happen, and you know this, is that a competitor or something has to change. A competitor has to be doing this and getting advantage from it, or a client has to be dissatisfied with the product or service you're offering. Like something's got to change in your industry, in your category, in your kind of competitive set, typically to motivate this level of investment and effort. That's what I think needs to happen. We don't have enough case studies right now, frankly. I think when AI is not working, no one's talking about it. If you think about sort of industry case studies,
Yeah.
and when it is working, I think a lot of companies don't want to talk about it either because they
Yeah.
view it as a competitive advantage, right? And they're not sharing. So my observation the past, 12 months is that the industry, the AI industry, is struggling to come up with more and more real case studies that they can share. Because the question I get most asked, Stuart, by leaders is, well, can you show me who else is doing what? Who can I follow, right? Who can I learn from? Where is the evidence this is working so I can go back to the CFO, and the board and get the $1 million I might need, or the $10,000 if you're a startup, right? It's real money. So yeah, I think we're in this transition moment where a lot of hype, not a lot of case studies, and we're not seeing the impact of not using AI yet. We're beginning to see that, right? Chegg, the public edtech company, the homework helper company, clearly 2 years ago when ChatGPT came out, they were going to be challenged and they knew it. Now it's 2 years later and they're suing Google and they put the company up for sale and the stock is cratered by 99%. So, we are going to start to get the roadkill
Yeah.
from AI. And frankly, I think we'll need more of that to show other CEOs and other leaders like, I need to take this seriously. And if I don't, my business could really face existential risk. Clearly in media, CPG, in law, these language intensive functions and industries, and we're going to see more impact of AI for those who are using it to advantage, and those who don't and are laggard will start to see the impact of that, right? In terms of not moving fast enough. It takes a while though, right? All this takes a few years.
Yeah, it's too bad that people have to be provoked to do that, but it's not surprising. I love the idea of the 100-person pilot or sandbox, because it's obviously how you would experiment otherwise, but for some reason we just decide to give it to everyone and hope that everyone, whether it's 1,000-person, 500-person, 10,000, 50,000-person company, uses it. Or
Yeah,
it's
you,
like
you can see
testing
why that
small and
happens,
scaling.
right? Yeah, you can see why it happens. The Microsoft sales rep is selling that, right? Or they're bundling it in. Hey, if you renew all your Microsoft contracts, we're going to give you a Copilot for a couple of years and we'll give you unlimited licenses or something like that. And the CEO has been talking up AI at the management team meeting and the all hands. Everybody's been running around saying, you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who uses AI, right? That's been the cliche, I think, for the last couple of years. And so, yeah, let's sign a license agreement and get it for everybody. And I think the issue with that is it's not software. And when the CTO or CIO or the tech team buys it, I think they tend to think about it like software, like deploying the new ERP or the new CRM or the new Microsoft Teams instance. It's not software. It doesn't behave anything like software, right? It's this weird thing. It's this co-intelligence that you work with that behaves differently every time you use it. It never gives you the same answer. Well, we're used to software where you put input in, you get the same output out. It's kind of works the same way every day we log into it. This is not AI. And so I think it's just been this fundamental misunderstanding of this capability. And so it kind of gets deployed like software, a little bit of training, a little bit of all hands, rah, hey, let's all use AI. And then we move on to the next, priority or project or whatever it is. And people are left with like, what is this thing? Like, how do I use it, right? How do I get value from it? Again, that's why it's consumers and small business that have been driving this. They're really incented, to find a ways to get value from it. If you're an entrepreneur, you never have enough resources.
Yeah.
You never have enough marketing. You never have enough. You don't have a PR firm. You don't know how to write a press release or whatever it is, and you can offload that to AI. And big companies, everybody's like, no, someone else does that. I don't need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself in getting just curious off the ground that I've used it in almost every aspect of the business and not always as well as I could have, but whether it's product development or workflow automation or just as a thought partner, it's been critical for me. You mentioned, speaking of thought partner, that AI should be thought of as a strategic advisor. Tell me a little bit more about that perspective.
Yeah, listen, it's probably just, with age. I'm 63. I type with two fingers. With age comes some amount of wisdom and or self-awareness. And in terms of self-awareness, listen, I've got my default ways of making decisions, right? I've got my sort of go-to mental models. I'm an entrepreneur. I tend to be an optimist. Obviously, I tend not to think about the downsides or what could go wrong. That's a blind spot. And what I love about AI is it doesn't have any of these blind spots, really. AI is the one tool that I work with that crosses domains, crosses countries, crosses cultures, languages, crosses industries, crosses functions. AI really can kind of do anything. Again, not always as well as we want yet. And we don't, as humans, cross. We don't cross domains and industries and cultures and countries, that easily, for sure, right? And we don't certainly cross sort of strategic frameworks and mental models and decision-making frameworks. We tend to have the two or three we kind of rely on. If you think about our brains, Stuart, they haven't changed much in 70,000 years, right? If you think about evolution, it works slowly. And we have limited working memory. That's why telephone numbers are 7 digits, right? We have limited attention. We get distracted easily while we're working. Think about working in an open office or in a coffee shop. We overhear a conversation, or even if we put on music, we get distracted by the music. We do take these mental shortcuts. That's the only way our brains can really operate to kind of handle the complexity of life around us and now of work. We get so much inbound content and data into our lives, notifications, emails, like Slack messages and so on. Our brains, we need the help. So I actually think, AI is here to help us overcome our limited cognitive capacities for the world in which we now live. That's where we start, I think, right? And so I think about it right away as a thought partner because I want to make better decisions, right? And I think any medium to high stakes decision can be improved a little bit by using AI. And I'm not saying AI is going to make the decision. I'm not saying you're going to cut and paste what AI says and kind of run with it in terms of your decision. But again, we have these blind spots. We don't always think about the things we should be thinking about. And so I just like to use AI as someone that can help me think through decisions. And that could be at home, that could be parenting, that could be medical advice, travel planning, obviously some obvious ones. And then of course at work, anything that decision that really matters, why not spend an extra 5 or 10 minutes and talk to AI about it? And we do that typically in our lives for important decisions, right? We have our friends, our spouses, partners, our mentors, our thought partners, but they're hard to reach, not available 24/7, and AI is. And so again, my point of view is I've got a third monitor. I'm looking at it over here on the right-hand side of my desk, Stuart. I added it actually in January as kind of an experiment. I call it my AI monitor. It's on a vertical horizon. It's got one browser open. It's got 3 tabs: Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Claude. And so it's always, it's slightly out of, it's not directly in front of me. It's just slightly to the right of my line of sight, but it's always present. It's always on. And I have found that just easier for me to work with AI even more than I did before. So it's actually reduced friction for me to kind of have a conversation with AI. And then if I like the output of that, I cut and paste that over into my main workspace, which is my, my primary monitor, kind of that's dead center on my desk. And I think that's a little hint of the future. I think the end of the future is that these AIs are going to be around us. They're going to be sort of watching us, if you will, while we work, and we'll be able to turn to them and get some advice. Today it's a little bit of friction, right? I've got a prompt. I've got to ask the question. I've got to have a conversation. Of course, you can do it over voice. using ChatGPT on your phone, which is great, and I do that all the time. But I think we'll be in a world soon where AIs are just sort of able to help us when we ask them. It'll be less friction to ask them, and I think thought partnering is just a great use case. Also because I think a lot of executives think, well, AI is not for me. What I've read about AI, it's going to be good for writing press releases and social media posts, and or the software engineers use AI and they're coding faster or better. That's great, but I'm an executive. I think big thoughts. I make important decisions. I don't need AI, and it's quite the opposite, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that we could all optimize our decisions a little bit better, and I think AI is going to be the way we do that. So I would encourage any executive, that's their primary use case probably for AI. It's not going to be writing emails or summarizing research reports or whatever it is. It's going to be take your business plan, take your product roadmap, take your go-to-market plan, whatever it is. Take your organization, your reorg plan. I mean, we've had good conversations with AI at Section around how to reorganize teams and asking the AI to play the role of a head of HR or an organizational development consultant. Or this idea of personas is really important when you work with AI. You can ask AI to play a role to help you kind of optimize this decision.
Yeah, I
So
was going
yeah,
to ask you about when it comes to decisions and important decisions and executive level decisions, the role AI can play in board meetings. You've written about this. Can you share a little bit more about how you use AI in a board meeting and an
yeah,
example
sure.
maybe of sort of how one could use it?
We use it to get ready for the board meeting. So we don't use AI actually in the meeting, and we don't record our board meetings, and we don't use AI note takers, and that's mostly for governance and legal reasons currently.
Yeah.
So we use AI before and after, and the before is pretty simple. I send the same board deck that I send to the humans, which is the pre-read. We typically send our pre-read a couple of days before the board meeting. I take that same deck, which is the pre-read, and I give it to AI, and we give it currently to 4 different AI, and we ask the AI to play different board member roles or different personas. We ask AI to play an aggressive board member, looking for growth and wanting to sort of drive, the value of the company. A more conservative board member, more concerned about cash runway and sort of maintaining the business, if you will. Play the role of a CFO-minded board member and so on. So yeah, we use it basically to prep. It offers a good amount of value to me. Frankly, if I was a first-time entrepreneur, it would even add a lot more value, right? I've done a lot of startups. I've been in a lot of board meetings. But even with my experience, AI always, offers me insights, offers me things I haven't thought about to get ready for the board meeting. And by the way, what we do, Stuart, is we actually compare. So I have someone, my chief of staff, attend the board meeting, the human board meeting, and we take faithful notes of what everybody said. And then we compare what the human said to what the AI told us before the board meeting. And 2 AIs, from Anthropic and ChatGPT, usually score 85 to 90% in terms of a match to what the humans told us in the actual board meeting. So again, I'm not about to replace my human board.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to maybe at times, but human boards write checks, right? They're investors. AI is not yet writing checks, not funding companies. But again, for any CEO, and certainly for a first-time or second-time CEO who has a little bit less experience, these AIs are getting pretty close to the same kind of comments and insights and advice that humans are offering actually in the board meeting. So why not do that? And by the way, the board members should do the same. My point of view of the board member is take my board deck, take the pre-read, you load it into your AI and role play with your AI so you come to the board meeting better prepared to ask me questions and to challenge my thinking as the CEO. And so hopefully if we're both doing that, we can raise the quality of our conversations, in these board meetings. And I think for any decision, inside of any company, a management team meeting, a board meeting, again, a product planning meeting, whatever it is, have the conversation with AI first and, see if you can, improve the quality of the conversation when you do it with your humans.
Yeah. We touched on how predicting the future is challenging, and when it comes to new things like the internet and AI, electricity, where we end up looks a lot different than where we started and probably where we expect to go. But that being said, when you look forward 5 years, how do you see AI reshaping leadership and decision making at big companies like the ones that you work with?
I don't know if it's going to reshape decision making as much as we think. I think it's going to reshape the workforce a lot more than we think. I think it's in that time frame that you're talking about in the next 5 years. I think the most dramatic impact of AI is going to be on our teams. Most teams follow a pretty typical distribution, right? You've got lower performers, most of the team is in the middle of the pack, and then you've got a few superstars. That's kind of how every team looks. And you overcompensate, if you will, the superstars. You want to retain them, and you undercompensate and or manage out of the organization the underperformers. I think most teams will not look like that in 5 years. I think we should think about there won't be any underperformers.
Yeah.
We're gonna have AI enabled teams where I think the team will have two halves, if you will. Half of the team will be superstars, and today it's probably 10 or 15% of most teams are superstars, right? I think in the future more will be superstars, and the rest will be in the middle of the pack, if you will, AI enabled, and there won't be underperformers. So I think we need to really. I think our decisions will likely get made the same way, maybe faster with AI. I think the work's going to be done faster with mostly smaller teams. I do think our teams in most functions, particularly language intensive functions, will be smaller. I also think these teams will change in terms of who's on the team, maybe even from a perspective of age. Think about this, Stuart. High school kids with AI are basically level 1 Google engineers now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to repeat that, right? High school kids, smart high school kid graduating using Copilot or Cursor
Yeah.
or Klein or any one of these AI coding tools can step in to a level, 1 engineering job in Silicon Valley, which has been that's been the entry level job for, software engineering in Silicon Valley. And in fact, I had a technical leader say something to me recently, which was, my capabilities are exceeding my knowledge.
Huh.
This is as relates to software engineering. Just
Yeah.
think about that. My capabilities, my ability to produce code, they're exceeding my ability to understand actually how I'm producing that code. And there's one way to think about that that's a disaster. We're going to graduate and have people in our workforce that don't understand what they're doing. That could be an outcome, right? But they're also highly productive.
Yeah.
So my point is, what do we do? What do we do with college, right? If 18-year-olds can come out and code at the level of a level 1 engineer, what do we do with, or how do we train young workers? Most of our entry-level jobs, as you know, are about asking people to do boring, repetitive shit work so they learn how to do that work and learn that function, right? So in marketing and PR, right, it's all the junior employees are doing all that grunt work, and they do it for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and we use it as a way to train them, and we use it as a way to weed out the weak performers and then sort of promote the stronger ones. Lawyers do this as well, obviously, right? Financial advisors and accountants do this as well. And I think that work's going to get done by AI.
Yeah. And how do you train?
How do you train? And if you recruit people, how do you keep them busy? That busy work's gone, right? So does that mean these younger people are going to be accelerated into being in front of clients, or making some more important or riskier decisions sooner? I don't know. Probably, like all that stuff. That to me is, I think, the most dramatic impact of AI is for leaders will be thinking through their organizations. How big they are, how are they organized, how are they built, how new people are brought into organizations. I just think that's to me fascinating, a little scary. And what I want for the leader is to, start wrapping their head around that now. What I want for the employee is, don't be caught out by that. Get yourself into the AI class, get yourself proficient as fast as you can. And so that, because these changes I think are coming faster than we realize. I do think that we have been distracted a little bit by this idea of AGI, artificial general intelligence, or super intelligence, or, I think that I think that's a distraction. I think we should be focusing on how good are these tools getting at doing kind of regular knowledge work, kind of everyday knowledge work. And the answer is they're getting very good very quickly. This new deep research product from OpenAI, it's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
We've used it a lot. I've used it personally, and at Section, our team's been using it a lot. It's clearly a level 1 MBA analyst or a research analyst. It's not a summer intern anymore.
Yeah.
If the mental model for AI was we have a summer intern that's tireless and makes surprising mistakes, I think that was the right mental model up until last month. And now the mental model for AI that we should all be holding in our minds is it's an MBA analyst, and it can do some pretty complex work very quickly in terms of kind of research and reporting and analyzing a lot of data.
Yeah.
In terms of business context. And for software engineers, I think it's an expert tutor sitting right alongside you.
Yeah. And that's today. And we're obviously on a curve. So It'll be really interesting to see what tomorrow looks like. Let me ask you lastly, for people listening to this who are interested in improving the adoption and utilization of AI within their organizations, what types of people should reach out to you? Is it industry based or company size? Who is Section best positioned to help?
Yeah, I would say it's not industry or size, it's ambition. So if you're someone that is leading a team of small as five or a handful and as large as 100,000, and we have large Fortune 500 clients, and you have the ambition to move a significant number of your employees into the AI class. If you want to move your employees from being anxious and novice to confident and proficient, yeah, give us a call, sectionai.com, and we'll see if we can help. It's all about wanting to, if not be first, I think there's already companies that went first. Now it's about being a fast follower. And again, I'm okay with CEOs who say to me, I don't even want to be a fast follower. I'm going to wait. At least it's intentional. I'd rather leaders be intentional in this moment. Lead, fast follow, maybe sit on the sidelines. But again, if you're sitting on the sidelines intentionally, maybe your industry is too regulated to use AI, or maybe your culture, your culture won't accept AI for whatever it is, or maybe your tech stack and your CTO is not ready to deploy AI, right? So there's good reasons to go slower. Just be intentional about them. For us right now, we're working with fast followers, people that want to not get left behind in terms of their organizations or their teams or individuals even, right? So yeah, just come to sectionai.com or send me an email and we'll see if we can help.
Awesome. Greg, thanks for coming by and chatting. It was a great talk.
Likewise, I appreciate the invitation.